Namaste, Galactic family. Welcome back to the channel IndigoAngel, guys. Come on into this dimension. I'm so excited and have a special treat. We have Mr. Gene Decode here today, and I just love catching up with Gene because for one, I think you just have such an amazing heart. Like you are just truly a genuine person that I think is like really trying to transmit truth and keep people in the higher timelines. And, you're working on the behalf of the divine. And so it's like, I don't know, I just always feel so good to catch up and thank you for being here. So, what are you doing today?
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor to be back. I love being with you too. You're such a kind and loving person, and you radiate that light of the Holy Spirit. I just did a document that God downloaded to me, a 5-hour decode on choice and how that affects the luminosity of the soul. And so it either increases your luminosity and service to others, and you're kind and considerate and respectful, and the only person you judge is yourself, or you decrease it through vengeful acts and all of that. And I was researching the difference between wheat, chaff, and tares. There's a difference between chaff and tares. So tares are people who are kind of on the fence and say they're Christian, but they attack other people and they're judgmental and vengeful, and that dims out the soul. But at the same time, God's kicking the fence out now. So it's only up to God to do judgment. So it's none of our business. And so we're in a time that is quite unique and beautiful. We're coming to the end of all this garbage and this stuff. And we're in a time in which things are going to change so quickly, so fast, that the alliance is going to have to slow things down, like Colonel Bossy. I have a message from Colonel Bossy too. And the deep state is running out of weapons. That's why all you see is the constant assassination attempts, and continuing to try to push jabs, whether it's through the MPOXs or the bird FLUs, that are all in the previous jab. That all came from the previous jab. So that stuff plus the H6, or I guess it's for the H, then one in Roman numerals 1V, which is for, if people understand what I'm saying, because I don't know if you're going to put this on YouTube, and the algorithms are fierce on YouTube. So I'm learned to talk around the algorithms as much as possible. And, I know people like to pirate videos anyway. Pretty much everything I've ever done is out there on YouTube now. So they pirated it all, and BitChute and Rumble. It's all over the place. So everything I've ever, there's even real Gene Decode and Gene Decode YouTubes and stuff. I'm like, I guess I have to put my stuff up on YouTube. They took my name out of the algorithm because they wanted to post decoding the, gene decoding of the human genome. So that has my name right in there. It used to be you get your website torn, your YouTube torn down if you put my name. But
Yeah.
now it's gone because they want to talk about altering the human genome, and I have something on that too. So thank you, Indy. Great being here.
Yeah. I was wondering if maybe you could speak a little bit to your path of enlightenment and like how you have found your connection and like where have you found it and maybe what your journey has been a little
Yep,
bit with.
absolutely. So the luminosity of the soul decode I did it on Tish Talk last week. If you want, I could do that here. It is actually how one goes through ascension is to eliminate the negativity within yourself, which you can actually negatively enlighten, which is actually descension. It's not ascension. You're descending into a negative path of enlightenment in service to self. And enlightenment comes in service to the one creator of all that is, and in service to others, in respect, in dignity. Somebody once told me that the best vengeance is a life well lived in truth, honesty, and kindness. And so I try to live by that to live in truth, honesty, and kindness. And, another person sent me a magnificent email talking about the separation of the wheat from the tares. And tares turns out to be different, Tares, from chaff. So chaff is something you can recognize, but in the growing season, the tares and the wheat are almost indistinguishable. And the tares are the lukewarm Christians that are sitting on the fence, and they're
Mm.
sitting there talking about, and I found a website even defining the difference, and it's talking about how the Christians that think they have the right to judge others, that it's their job to judge. That's how we got the Spanish Inquisition. That's how we got Crusades. It's not our job to judge anybody, and that's what in the luminosity of the soul, God downloaded to me in a 5-hour download. It's not our job to judge others. The only person we're supposed to be judging is ourselves. Are we living a life that we would be proud of when we leave this physicality and our corporeal self? Would we be proud of what we left behind? Did we leave decimation and hurt feelings and people? And when you attack and judge others, it's very hurtful for new Christians and people that are not knowing. It's causing all kinds of negativity, and it damages. As one decreases their luminosity, it damages the earth. She too is our host. And if you're decreasing your luminosity and she's having to support your life while you're feeding off of others and bringing their luminosity down, then you actually cause her to get sick. And so a sick planet is a planet where you see earthquakes and floods and droughts. And a healthy planet, even if that's created by mankind and their weapons of earthquake machines and all these things, that can't be done to a healthy planet. A healthy planet would shrug that off. If they're the ones they're hosting, the sentient beings, were not draining the planet they're on from that luminosity. It's why you have to do the work you do of going all over the world and to centers for the chakras of Earth. Like I've done those things too, because we have to help her. And the best way a person can help her is to get their luminosity, look within, and make a change from negative to positive, service to others, kindness, respect, and consideration, and not judging others. If you don't fit with somebody, move on. Just go on. It's not you for us as truthers to decide who's good and bad. That makes it so that we're in the seat of judgment, and that's only for God. Additionally, it means that we are deciding for others, and we are not the other person. What may mesh for you or for me or for someone else may not fit for somebody else. We're not supposed to everybody get along, because we're all created unique and different, to the point where that difference will get to the point where you don't fit with somebody. That's fine. Just move on and go to what fits with you. Don't sit there and judge other people and define the other truthers. That's why we have the truther wars. I don't care who you think you are and what you think you know. Your information is truth for you, but it may not feel, or even the other person may feel they have to attack somebody, but you don't. You just say your truth. Truth will defend itself. You don't have to defend truth. Truth defends itself. It's eternal. And God put that in the luminosity of the soul too. And it's very profound. So I'm learning so much when I got that download. Constantly, everywhere I went, I got that shown to me and defined to me. So when you are judging others, God will kick that fence out. If you're saying you're a Christian or serving others and the creator of all things, but you're in judgment, God will kick that fence out. That's the time we're in now. And so there's a lot of people, there's a new term I heard, which is called black pilled. So if you take a blue pill and that person becomes a red pill, and then they go back to being blue pilled, well, you mix red and blue, you get black. So they're what's called black pill, because they do not want change. It terrifies them. I found this out. You take people too fast, too deep, and they want a world that is defined without all this change and not having to do the research. That's why these people are attacking other truthers, is they're doing the research for others. But you're taking away their choice and their empowerment and their learning and their ability to research for themselves. Let people learn that. And if they don't want to do that, let them decide for themselves. And if they need the Armageddon line and they need to go there, that's fine. but it's not what something we need to do. If an individual feels they're on a path of ascension and kindness and respect and consideration and letting other people and trying to help other people to learn how to research, Ariel put out an amazing tweet about how to do research. And so, to do the FOIA requests and all that, and many, many different platforms, and look at this and look at these websites and look at this government website and that one. And, it's the problem is that people have been spoon fed for so long and gotten an instant gratification society in which they feel that they just want people to tell them how it is. They don't want the change. They don't want constantly having to question who is who and what is what. And they would rather live with the mainstream media, like DuckDuckGo is now sponging off anything that's not mainstream. Whether it's, and the Uhuru 3 trials is saying that anything that is not the mainstream narrative and the government narrative is disinformation, even if it is true. Well, that's not disinformation if it's true. And that's like the founding fathers said, when you have no freedoms and you have no freedom of speech, that's why it's the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. And the government, you fear your government, you're in a tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have freedom. And so we've lost our freedom utterly. With the government coming down, especially UK, now they're putting people that have an 80-year-old lady was arrested and her home was raided because she did some social tweets that were against what the government said. And they said they're going to go after people, and they are. So there's when Kamala Roos, born in Benghazi, Libya, that's running for president, known as Kamala Harris, actually not born in this country, not even saying she was born here. That's actually not true. Her mother was Indian, from India, and then her father was a darker gentleman, we'll just say that, darker in skin color, born in Benghazi. And long ago, she was actually saying that and you look at her platform, it's entirely communist, but she was saying that we need to define what people can say and to go against what people and get them arrested for saying things that are not the mainstream. And we need to ban all assault weapons and all of this and go into people's homes that have the right to bear arms, that are registered arms bearers and weapons, and just go into their homes and see what they have. Well, that's another part of the Constitution of the Bill of Rights, that your home is your castle, and they don't have a right to just come into your home and see what's there. Well, that's what the 911 did. The Homeland Security and the all of the acts that resulted from 911 that have been renewed in Part 2, that took away all our rights. You don't have any rights. They don't have to show you a warrant. They can come in because they say you're a terrorist. Like if you were retired military like I am, they can come in your home because you're a terrorist. As a retired military person, you're defined as a terrorist, and you're a licensed gun owner. We got to see what weapon you own. You own a RER-15. That's a weapon of mass destruction. So now you go to prison. That's where they're headed, and that's pretty much where we are. So this, I think, will be our last election if Kamala Roos gets in.
Question: do you think there's any spiritual prophecy that could be unfolding through Kamala's nomination? And I just wonder that because I wonder because her name, because they said Kamala means lotus, and it connected to the goddess Lakshmi, and also the transformation of going from a masculine ruled, government to more of a feminine one. So do you think this has anything to do with the shift in consciousness at all? Or do you think this is...
No, there's only one God, goddess, whatever, which is God, the Holy Spirit, and the only begotten Son. It's the Trinity of creation itself. It represents how creation works, even down to the physical level, where a man gives information, in other words, genetic information in some cases, and then it's like I was listening to a video. You give a woman a a house and she'll make you a home. She multiplies anything you give her. You give her sperm and she'll give you a child. You give her a hard time and she gives you. So watch what you give your woman, the woman in your life. So, this is true, but with Kamal, it's if she gets in, we're toast. So Trump, the first assassination attempt, supposedly by crooks, which he was over a body length from the crust of the roof at a 4-inch rise per 1 foot forward, means he could not, laying down, see over the crust of the roof yet. So the fact that he's sighting, laying on his stomach, with the rifle, the AR-15 red dot, supposedly, in his shoulder that Christopher Wray said had a collapsible stock, which an AR-15 red dot does not have. It has a removable stock. They just lie. And then the brass you see all over the place when they went up there with their body cams was spread by those that had their body cams up there, because he's right-handed. An AR-15 and most automatic weapons and semi-automatic weapons kick the brass to the right, and he's right-handed. How did the brass get all over the place? How did the gun, he's right-handed, he got shot in the back of the head. They shot him from the front. How did the bullet go in the back? It's the magic bullet that killed Kennedy is back. It's going all over the place, and he's too far to see the shot, and the gun is way over to his left. I mean, way, way over to his left. There was a man on a gym roof across the street, across the compound, that took him out, and also took out Violets, which wasn't Violets. The Alliance knew this was going to happen. They had replaced him. And then he had a vest on, so the guy shot him in the vest. He dropped to a knee, got back up, did a zip line, got in a black SUV of being rented from the Department of Agriculture by the FBI, the white hat FBI. And because they already had gotten Violets, like they had already gotten Matthew Crooks. And so in this situation, what you see is an anointing of a high priest. If you look in Leviticus, the anointing that happens for a high priest is the tip of the right ear is got blood put on it, in this case by a bullet. Then the anointed one drops to his knees with his shoes off. He dropped to his knees with his shoes off and lowers his face to the ground. Then he puts his hand on his ear, comes up and waves his hand, showing his right hand, that he is now anointed. That is an anointing by the Bible into high priesthood. Trump is the high priest to bring down the deep state, the Satanists. You look at people holding up 2 fingers. They say that's 2%ers. That's not 2%ers. Look at the Baphomet statues. That's the Baphomet horns. It represents 2 things. It represents Satan and his son, the Antichrist, and the 2 horns of Baphomet. So, you see people saying this stuff and doing this stuff, it's not what it is. And so we're being fed a lot of things like, if we look at what they're saying, like the Danish Prime Minister said, it was put out on Lillian. I think this was out on, let me share this real quick. I think this is on X, this video, but Alex Christoforo shared this at the opening of his show yesterday. So let me play this.
And prosperity for their people. That's not the case with Russia. There's only one part who have started this war. There's only one aggressive part, and that is Russia. And I don't think you can have a peaceful solution when the one country that has been attacked wants peace.
So you can see he alone is responsible for the war in Europe, Putin. Where's Ukraine? Last I looked, it wasn't really Europe, not really. It's kind of more up in the steppes of Russia area, in the Pontic steppes. So that's a bunch of baloney. And then you also have this recent one as well, in which this was, that was today, this is yesterday. This is in the EU Parliament. So this is really profound.
Oh, Laudetur Jesus Christus. Thank you very much. Is this war council? Are we at war? Are we really going to fight for what cause? With whom? With what resources? You're not helping Ukraine by prolonging this war. You're not helping Ukrainian people who were looking for shelter,
Thank you for
escaping their own country, and
So they muted him. And listen to what is said. This is the worst This is truly beyond parody.
Well, dear colleague, it wasn't really a question, but let me assure you that this parliament, up until the beginning of this illegal war against Ukraine, has been quite united to make sure that we both military, but also in infrastructure and financially support the people of Ukraine, who clearly stated they want to be part of a free Europe and not to be part in the future of a Russian Federation where there is no democracy and no freedom of speech.
No freedom of speech, and you just muted him. So, what a hypocrisy that is. I mean, it's like these people say one thing and then turn around and do it to you and say you're free. And how is the war in Ukraine and us continuing, all of the EU, all of the Five Eyes, continuing to arm them? And over 1 million people are dead because of this. It's
Yeah. I
hypocrisy.
feel like I see is just like genuinely the force of hatred. Um, and kind of going back to what you were saying before about all of the separation and the judgment that people have. I mean, this is all kind of at the root of what flares up these types of things in the first place, is self-righteousness, right? And that disconnection with God. One thing I've seen with my own personal like life and death and rebirth cycles is that in the afterlife, you think you're going to some hellfire place where you're getting, you know, put through the fire of hell for your sins, but really what's happening is like you're being shown how you made somebody else feel when you judge them, how you made somebody else feel when you hurt them. You get all inner understanding and wisdom of what you were actually supposed to learn through those soul contracts. And so I never worry anymore now when it's like I'm experiencing these type of lack in relationship or lack in connection or communication, because it's like I know all will be revealed when we come full transcendence. And we think we have all this time on the earth to make up for these things, but really, I mean, our lives are so short. And so our lessons are actually on a soul level learned very quickly for those that, are definitely awakening and going through the ascension process. I think because we have stronger moral compasses and we have stronger connection with the divine that are helping us guide us through those processes before we get to the afterlife. So that way the afterlife isn't such a painful thing that will reenact a harvesting or a reincarnation cycle in which you're going to have to come in at a much lower level of consciousness and get those ascension codes back up type of thing. But I mean, I guess my fear has been released so much because I know everyone will ultimately be shown in the end, but it brings me ultimately to the point or the core wound of separation that we have on the planet. Even with these wars, I just got back from Kauai, Hawaii, and we went to the Waialeale crater, and this is supposed to be like the cradle of life portal. And one of the things that I picked up there was that the original wound of separation from source is there, because it's like that's where all life initiated from, was this ancient extinct volcano on the oldest Hawaiian Pacific island at the center of the earth, at the center of the universe, our planetary universe. And you can feel like the missing link of the divine feminine priestess. You talk about Trump being the anointed priest, but it's like what this planet is missing is the feminine oracle, I feel personally, because the feminine oracle is going to bring forth that healing that the world so desperately needs. And so I really feel like, that wound of separation is the guiding division between religion and spirituality, and the oppression of the divine feminine coming into a level of being able to speak at a higher level of enlightenment to the world, I recognized in Hawaii that there was literally there and around the world entirely, there are no sanctuaries or monasteries or churches or mosques or whatever that are oriented towards the priestess or the oracle being able to deliver any sort of messages that come channeled in directly from the divine. So we're missing an entirely piece globally and worldwide of the divine feminine essence of Christ because they're counterparts, right? Like we actually need both to be speaking enlightenment. And so when one is so deeply, deeply wounded and casted out of the Garden of Eden, because that original wound of separation that literally resides energetically in the lands of Kauai still, that we can't heal that. You know what I mean? That fracture. So that's where I'm going when you're saying all this stuff. It's like, we don't have the nurturing element in our politics. We don't have the nurturing element and the healing element and the pathwork of God truly in our social structures and governmental structures, in which are everyone's source of being nurtured, right? Because everyone's looking to this for an answer and looking to this to make all the decisions. Hence why we've given our power away in so many ways, because everybody's in fear. So we're just continually drawing off that fear and lack. And when I got back from Hawaii, I'll tell you what, because I was there for a week and a half, I got on the plane and came back home. I was devastated in the airport. I started bawling and crying because I just felt how everybody's so disconnected. Everybody's drowning in density. Everybody's in their cell phone, disconnected from their heart. Nobody's higher hearts are activated. Nobody's angelic hearts are activated. I just see perversion everywhere. I see sexual mischief. I see just like, and this is normal. Nobody recognizes it. Nobody recognizes that they're living completely disconnected from their true pathwork in life. And how do we alleviate that veil from the collective? Because that's the, I think the core of the separation wound is nobody can experience joy. Nobody can experience radiance. Nobody can experience true liberation and freedom of their spirit. And they're binded to all of these things that just having them going down into the reversal patterning and ending their life so much sooner than it should be ended. You know, it's just, it's unbelievable to me, you know, and it's kind of devastating. And this is what I pray for. When we were in Hawaii, I mean, it was just all about bringing back the original 12th dimensional sound healing, bringing back the original 12th dimensional blueprint and light body to help assist and correct the burdens of the planet, because all of this enslavement, drudgery, and toil with the wars and all of the bloodshed on these lands, all of the children dying in Gaza and Israel, that's felt in Hawaii. I literally went to the Russian Star Fort down there, and I seen how in that fort, they were hanging people in there. They were using those star forts to take people in like prisoners of war to torture them. And that was a direct portal that opened me up to Gaza through the ley lines. And I seen all the children dying there. And so, you know what I mean? It's like we can't cleanse it from the planet until we're able to truly understand how it's affecting, you know, not just us individually on a personal level, but it's affecting the land. It's affecting the consciousness in which we share in the unified field. That unified field is way below in terms of vibration and holiness. It's just a satanic soup. And yeah, it's just like, how, you know, what do you think is the solution to dissolving the separation in humanity
Yeah,
and the hatred, right?
this is part of what the cabal does. Is the first war they created of separation. What they separate us. So it, you know, people talk about separation by culture or country or religion, but the first separation was the war of the sexes, separated by our gender. And now they're making a gender like something like mini genders where there's only two in our species. There was a video somebody sent me in which they, you know, this non-terrestrial being was with a whole bunch of doctors and politicians, presidents, etc. And they said, I was asking about the human species and says, how many sexes? Well, it's 17 right now, but it keeps growing. They go, oh my goodness. The non-terrestrial says, you're evolving that fast, you're ascending that fast. And they go, so how do they get together? And goes, well, a man and a woman. He goes, I thought you just said there's 17. Well, to procreate, it's the man and the woman. It goes, oh, I see. You're descending, and you're all a bunch of idiots. And so that's where we've gone. And in the Council of An-Alam, which is currently the Council of Nine, was 5, 7, 5, then 7 again. Now it's 9. They talk a message to the peoples of Earth that as long as you're going to separate yourselves and degrade 1/2 of your species to the point that what it is the feminine side of God is the Holy Spirit, which gives us all life. It's the life that fills within us of each part of each person's spirit is what activates your 6 bodies: your soul body, your mental body, your causal or learning body, or as Christian point of view, sinful body, and then your physical body, and then your first and second density etherical body. So you have 6 total bodies, and they wouldn't live without the light of the Holy Spirit within you. From the Word of God came the Holy Spirit, which turned into the light. It sounds like water. And so what is the majority of who we are? Water. And what is the majority of what the earth is? Water. 3/4 of the surface of the earth, I think it is, something like that. I know the Pacific Ocean is huge and very, very deep. So it's all water, and it's a salt water. And if you look at the deep oceans of the world that are still clean, you take that down to a 3% solution, you take human blood and you take off all the red cells, white cells, platelets, you have seawater at a 3% solution, the same salts, the gold, the silver, platinum, everything you have in seawater at a 3% solution. And we are destroying the waters, and that is the divine feminine. And we are destroying that. That was the message from the Council of An-Alam, that as long as you do this, you will cause the fall. And that's why this attack on transgenderism, like Kamala Roos, who's currently running, born a man in Benghazi in Libya, is Libyan. Parents, one is looks like a darker gentleman, I guess you would say African American, something like that, Libyan maybe. Her mom, which is Indian, but not Native American, like she was saying, Indian from India. So this is, a desecration like Lady Gaga, which is the high priest / priestess, born Stephen. That's a guy. And there's pictures on X now. You can see Stevens, Lady Gaga, sitting in some guy's lap with stuff down below that shouldn't be there, just like Big Mike. Now with the P. Diddy trials, all of this stuff is coming out, this rampant stuff. And, people think P. Diddy's a small thing. It's not small. It's bigger than Epstein, because everybody was at these freak out parties for 3 days long. You're talking the Obamas, the Clintons, the royals. That's why they're all going down. That's why they're all freaking out. And they put him on maximum security, and his lawyers trying to get him out of there because he's going through withdrawals from many drugs. So he's now come out and dumped a whole list of names. And the reason he dumped that was to get something in there, like some coke or something, so that the DTs he's going through would not be so horrific. And the judge will not let him out on bail. Of course, he'd skip anyway, but this isn't really about P. Diddy. It's about all the people that were there and all of the type of parties, the same kind of blood ritual parties and Sabbath parties, in which you have blood orgies, just like at the Bohemian Grove, where you have people, women especially, being disemboweled during sex. I don't mean to get graphic, but we have to go here because people got to know what's going on. Busloads of children being brought in, and his lawyer saying how inhumane the conditions he's been taken in. What about the hundreds of children in the buses that were there for 3 days, drugged and grokked out of their mind, and you're doing all this stuff to them? What about that inhumanity that'll damage them for the rest of their life? What about them? And you're concerned about your person, his lawyer's concerned about P. Diddy. He should have thought of that before he had busloads of children and all the stuff he's done to women and to other men, forcing them to do stuff with other men, forcing them. I mean, if you want to get ahead, you do this. And actually, threatening them like certain senators that were there. If you don't do this, we know where your family is. In other words, threatening him, they will kill his family if he doesn't have sex with a male child. I mean, this is the kind of depravity, like you're seeing, that, we see this depravity running rampant in Hollywood and in Congress and Senate and what was underneath the White House and the Senate and the Congress and all of this. It's all rampant. And we see if it's not obvious enough, then we see the Olympic Games, which is a rampant finger to God, desecrating the Last Supper, the image of Christ, the whole thing. I mean, and the entire Olympics, and you have all kinds of men participating in women's sports. I mean, how's a woman supposed to persevere and succeed over a man? If it's in a long-term endurance like a marathon, yeah, a woman could probably beat a man because they're built for endurance. But you're talking weightlifting and sprints and these kind of things. That's what men are built for. We're built for sudden power and strength. So it's desecrating the beauty of the divine feminine. And I've talked about that, and I have that up on my Rumble about the divine feminine. And people no longer see the divine feminine. And that's why we have the wars that are rampant, because until a male is spiritually mature, which rarely happens on our planet anymore, a male is about proving himself to his mom. And it says, and when that gets going, it goes to, look, Mom, I killed somebody. Aren't you proud? I'm a powerful man. Oh, I killed 1,000 people. I killed a country like Ukraine. They darn near killed it. I mean, they continue this war. And how many, it was on a Ukrainian news broadcast almost 4 months ago. 1.1 million dead in Ukraine. And then they had to print a rebut that was a mistake, because in Ukraine, you have no freedom at all. They're even grabbing Uber drivers now out of their vehicles, out of their, and cab drivers. They're inscripting people off the street, and they have a jamming truck behind them so that they can't call for help. And I'm not talking just men. I'm talking anybody between the ages of 16 and 65. They don't have, they're saying, oh, their economy's improving. What economy? Run by who? You've sent them all to the front line, and if they get their legs blown off, you cut them up, harvest them, take their organs and sell them to people in the West that are flown up to the front lines in a bunker, put in a bunker to get the organs right out of a soldier that could have had his life saved. A soldier being either male or female, even women dead, and they harvest the baby out of her that could have a life, and then they harvest the baby. I did a decode on this too. And now the people of Ukraine are actually killing these people and scripting people on the street. The women have had enough of seeing their sons' bodies come back with all kinds of stitching all over them because all their organs are gone, and their daughters gone that were pregnant and died in a ditch called a foxhole, the trenches up on the front lines. This needs to come to an end. But Bojo the Clown's got to come into town and shoot down the very fair treaty they had way back over a year ago now. And now we see the same thing going in the Gaza. They're just bombing and pagers and everything. They're sending a message to you. Are you paying attention? Watch out for your cell phone. The Galaxy 7 used to blow up too, and the batteries would catch on fire. You're buying an electric car? A big, huge battery? Not for me, thank you. Am I absolutely positive they can't turn that thing on to blow up? Or my phone? I don't carry the thing when I'm out, and I don't carry it on my person. If I have to carry it, it's in the back seat where I can reach and get it. So if it explodes, maybe I could survive it. It's like, and I don't normally carry it anyway, but it's like,
Little fire extinguisher with you everywhere you go.
yeah, because already we've seen now what happened in the Gaza with the pagers and the and it's happened before with the Galaxy 7 nice phones that had you could use a pencil on it and write notes to yourself. It was a nice thing, but the batteries were burning up, So we know they can make them to do that. How do we know they aren't making them to do
I
that?
feel like it's that why all this is going on is because people can't feel the holy presence. Well, and I think this is what it is with religion too, because you said you have these Christians that half of them are like, not really kind of abiding to like the truth of the gospel or the word or the true enlightenment of it all. And so it's like they can't feel source. And what they can't feel, they can't know. And what they can't know, they can't experience. And because it's not a physical experience, because atonement and at one-ment is not coming into their body and they can recognize that source light within them. I mean, and why is it that so many are blocked off in this way? You know what I mean? Because if one was truly in one-ment with God and with the eternal, with the holy, with the angelic light, with the infinite radiance of it all, like this just simply would not exist because their soul would be lifted up in that virtue and that sanctity and that reverence for all life. And so I mean, we know it has a lot to do with the genetic manipulation, modification, hybridization programs, and forced breeder programs. A lot of my research has led me back to the Orion system, that the hybridization and the forced breeder program started in that system, and that Earth itself descended from the Orion system, and that Orion may be our true origins. And because we're in denial about this, because we're in denial that the Giza pyramids point to the Orion systems, and all the pyramids in the Yucatan point to Orion, and all the pyramids in China point to Orion, and everything in the world with the Freemason architecture points to Orion, like we're in denial, so we can't self-actualize our Orion, the reptilian gene code itself, and dissolve that predatorial force that's within humanity, because that's what it is. It's the predator of the reptilian. It's inside of people, and we think it's something outside of us, and there's these aliens, da 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 da. Well, true. I mean, there's extraterrestrials, and they're involved with the deep state and the dark military and the government, but really it's bred into us, and this is why these beings can act from this place. And I think the reptilian gene code in the body is a denser carbon-based body, so therefore they actually cannot take in the holy light. It's actually blocked. It's capped in their consciousness.
Yes, and so this hybridization, especially from the latest job, um,
And
is
just, I just want to comment on the job really quick. I mean, I'm so thankful I didn't take that. I would have been somebody who died from that. I mean, and I know people, I know somebody like last week that died because they took that. Like literally just up and had a seizure and died at 30 years old. So it's a serious thing. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was feeling that.
so RFK has actually said and came out and said that the various companies like this one have stated years ago during the Reagan administration that it's in the paperwork during the Reagan administration that by their nature, the jabs, the VACs, INEs, are by nature dangerous. They've never been safe at all. So how long have they been doing hybridization of us? Patent number US 9539210B2 or 0B2, January 2017, titled it nanotechnology that can deliver molecules. In some embodiments, a small molecule is a toxin, a chemical weapon, an agent of biowarfare. How long has this been going on? And so we're looking at something that is SGanon had an interview with Dr. I'm not going to pronounce it right, I know, so I apologize, Dr. Malikia, in which she showed in the dark field microscope the nanotech assembling self-assembly, and then assembling bigger servers with antennas and all kinds of stuff. And you could see the blinking blue lights. And she actually came with something that decimates them, which I'm working on trying to find out precisely what company that's clean that I can get this. She was saying ascorbic acid and EDTA injection. So I'm looking into trying to do that because I'm assaulted. Even unjabbed people had it in their blood as bad now as the jab people. So it's like this nurse is talking about what you were saying, Indy. So I'm going to click through this because it's over 2 minutes long, but this is out of control.
Where do you want me to start? Right after the stabby jabbies started? That's when we started seeing heart issues, kidney issues. Not only that, but diabetes issues. Patients that didn't have diabetes went up 75% in 2022.
This is a nurse talking.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of the few people that didn't get it where she works. She refused to, and they let her work because they were desperate for them during the 19 days.
People that had diabetes and got schmovid, their diabetes is no longer under control anymore. They're on 2 and 3 different medications. We don't even have enough of them. Let's see.
Let me go back.
We don't have enough heart doctors to see them. The heart monitors that they're wearing, we don't even have enough of them. Let's see. Turbo cancers? Yeah, that too.
So you can see this entire thing on TikTok at Jewel_.1978. I highly recommend you watch this entire thing from this very brave nurse. So this is what we're facing, and this is a bioweapon in which they want to, you get shut up. I recommend if this thing that SGN this doctor put out is for real, I know there's got to be something, because the deep state never puts out something that would kill them too, unless they have a way out. And so I think this may be it. I'm hoping, because I suffer like you do from being the shedders around me. I'm doing iodine all the time now, and then on my every 3 weeks, 3, 4 or so days, I do the Jim Hump protocol, because I can't do that the iodine from Magellan's direct potassium iodide on an empty stomach. And I now have, when I did my cleanse Friday, when I'm, by the second quart of salt water, I then switched to the Epsom salt water. And towards the end of the Epsom salt, before I went to bed, I'm completely empty. My stomach's empty. And now what I'm getting out of me is black. Is that graphene coming out of my body? And I didn't get jabbed. Not only that, when I cleaned my distiller, it used to have something like the color of your tan skin there, Indy, like kind of a beige, or those bricks behind you, the beige. Now it's black. The water that's being distilled off, the remnant behind that I have to clean my distiller, not every month. Now I have to go to 3 weeks, because and even the vinegar, the distilled white vinegar I put it in, doesn't get it all off. Even after soaking it for a week, I have to scrub it, put on gloves and scrub it with a scrubbing pad to get it off there. And what I get out of there is now black. They're putting this stuff in our water, our food, everything. So I'm hoping this information about the EDTA and the ascorbic acid is true, because this is something to get rid of the human species. Additionally, they're saying that they're giving Ukraine, UK, is going to give Ukraine permission to use the storm shadows deep into Russia, all the way to Moscow. That means what Putin has said. They will, for that red line, they will retaliate, and they will use tactical nukes. And by the way, in Lebanon, if you know what you're looking at, there was an explosion of the missiles that went from Israel to Lebanon. One of them was a cloud of mushroom with a big flash beforehand, and then sparklies in the air. That is a nuke. That is a tactical nuke. That is not a normal weapon. That is exactly what you see with a nuclear weapon. You see matter, gamma rays, reorganizing matter, and you see that first flash, and then a spherical, huge mushroom coming out in a flash of an instant, the light flash. And they are already using them. They've been using them in conflicts already. And they want this. The deep state wants this because they're fine to wait 150, 200 years, wipe out almost everybody, impoverish the world, make everybody starving, diseased, and homeless, and miserable, and then come back and take it all over and be the hegemonic control of the earth. That's exactly what they want. These reptilian hybrids, the blue bloods, because their blood is not based on iron predominantly, it's based on copper, so they turn blue, and other chemicals, other elements as well, depending on the non-terrestrial type they are. So, they are much more dense. They ascend negatively to 5D negative. They become what is known as archonic, or archons that feed off of what? Our negative feelings and emotions. That's why they get good people that are tortured through the MK Ultra programs and the dumps. So we have these people like Matthew Crooks and his second assassination attempt, this gentleman that was traveling all over the place who doesn't have work. Where's he getting money? From Crooks. He was being transferred money from a 20-year-old with offshore accounts and all this online presence and this guy is going all over the place. He was in Ukraine recruiting for the Ukrainians and all this stuff and traveling and being interviewed by everybody, by Newsweek and everybody, and they're tied together, and they've both done BlackRock commercials. What do you think BlackRock does? It's called MK Ultra. That's all of these random lone gunman shooters. It's never lone. They rewrite history. They said Lincoln was John Wilkes Booth he wasn't random, a one-man operation. 4 people were hung after they got John Wilkes Booth. There was a woman and 3 other conspirators. They started investigating that. Go look it up. Conspiracy, John Wilkes Booth and the conspirators that killed Lincoln. And it's still in there, but that's not what they teach in school. But what you'll see is when it started tying to the Rothschilds, they stopped it because it's anti-Semitism. The Rothschilds are Zionists. Zionists are not Hebrew. They're not born on this planet. They're from a planet called Ariana. In the constellation, the stars, the home star was called Sion. They changed it for a while to hide it to Zion, but it's Scion, like the car. And so you're seeing the symbols of it all over the world now. The Nike symbols, all of this stuff is their symbols. It's everywhere we look. They're out in plain sight. And
that makes sense to me, because that's the information I've gotten as well, is that it goes back to the Zionists, it goes back to the Zionites, which were the beings supposedly that were on Tara, that were the original human genome type that was hybridized by the Zetas, and that the Zetas brought this in from the 7th dimensional Earth Tara, like the original version of Earth.
Yeah, they actually they were on Tara, which was before the Milky Way. It's where the Milky Way was pulled through from the fallen solar systems within Andromeda 650 billion years ago. So if you look at the Milky Way's distance from Andromeda, and the fact that we're headed back means we've gone out and we're on our way back through the Great Awakening. And so this is an ascension of the entire Milky Way, not just the human race. The human race is the first species to do it, that will raise everything else up. That's why it's so important that we raise our vibrations and become in service to others and kind and considerate and respectful, and stop bringing down the Earth, our solar system, and thereby the entire galaxy with all these creatures that are not from here. So this group that caused the fall of Tara and the separation of our soul from us, the fall of our density to 2 strands from 64 original, and to cast out our dark side. That's the first demons. the
Well,
dark side
I don't
are,
think that the fall programming applies to all souls on the planet. I think it only applies to those souls that are binded in torture and enslavement to the Saturnian core soul essence, because there's no fire on Saturn. And Saturn holds like a hologram inside of our planet in which controls the artificial illusion of the dissension process here in the spike matrix and the checkerboard mutation and basically the scatter radiation, the Atlantean polarity grid, all of these things, the Atlantean pylon implant network, something we were going to get into at one point in time, but never did, and that's okay. But it's all, the souls are binded, they're Saturnian souls. And so there is no fire at the core of their spirit. They are essentially soulless beings in which can be modified and manipulated. That fall programming is given to these ones. But the fall program and the fall of the angels and the fall of mankind and the separation of Tara from Andromeda, I don't believe that applies to the angelic souls on the planet or to the star seeds or to the indigos or to those walking in the path of true enlightenment and have rehabilitated their DNA. Like, I feel like that is an illusion that is embedded into the emptiness of soul fire inside of the Saturn Tesseract cube. And I feel like that's also propagated by Mecca and by the Black Cube over there, and which is completely monitoring and suppressing the core of the feminine power, right? You think about Islam and this belief, and which is oppressing the feminine in a very deep way, in an aggressive and predatory way. And they're guarding that cube, creating an inversion, creating an anti-spiral to funnel down into the planet and harness the Black Cube Saturn matrix inside of the planet to sustain its life force here. The polarity is night and day. If you go from the center of the Earth over in the middle of the Pacific in the Polynesian Triangle, that is the full liberation of the feminine that resides there. It's entirely free there and entirely giving of life force essence. You go to its equal opposite, which is Mecca. It's the entire opposite and the inversion of that, which is entirely locking the feminine into inferiority and suppression of their voice, of their throat chakra, which is truly what has to be released for the feminine to alleviate herself on the planet. And
uh,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
this all goes back to Tiamat when they created the war between Mars and the Saturnians and the ones on Jupiter. And so that destroyed Tiamat. Earth was called Kingu, was a moon. And in that, at that time, Saturn was a star. It was called the greater sun. It was a cooler sun, but we were much closer. So we had a binary star system, and she had her heart still intact of the divine feminine within her. And so when the fallen group, the fallen angelics, Lucifer being the lead, crashed into that and ejected the material for the rings of Saturn as a part of the soul trap to capture people and to send them into the holographic matrix inside created to mimic certain life on Earth. So people would have lives that don't even exist in the real 3D of the matrix on Earth. They have Jabalon, and you go in there and you have interactions with people that aren't really people. They're holographic. And then you come to Earth and you meet those people and you don't like the person because they did something to you. They didn't do anything to you. It was in their holographic life you did. And so there's all of these issues between male and female and different people, and all of this created through this soul trap they created through the destruction of the heart of Saturn and putting the Earth in the current orbit it is to balance the system out so the whole solar system doesn't self-destruct. And so in this, the black cube is actually in Ethiopia, where they're rocking in the wrong direction. That's against the Coriolis effect and the tides and the spins of the Earth that's destroying the divine feminine there. That black cube is a giant meteor that came from Ariana. Of the two planets they blew up in Sion, their home planets, trying to figure out how to use the Metatronic death spiral technology, they destroyed their home worlds of Ariana and Na, and that they switched who's who too. So the Na became the Nazis, the Izzies, and the Ariana became, actually were originally the Nazis of the Na, and the Na were the Aryans, which went into the Vikings, and they destroyed the Valkyrie of the female warriors in the Vikings. They were fierce warriors. They tell you the Valkyries were somewhere else. But where do you think they originally came from? And so this group came out of the steppes of where? Ukraine, where they landed in the steppes of the Pontic steppes in Ukraine, all the way down along the Caspian Sea. And so one group, the Na, split off and went up to where the Vikings are, and the Ariana went down and became the Zionists. So if you look at the little man in World War II with the mustache that ran the Nazis, he is not Aryan. He is dark and swarthy and black hair. Doesn't have blue eyes and blonde, and blonde hair. So that is the Na. But the Aryan are actually up with the Vikings. So they switched who's who and where's where. And that's what they always do. They keep switching the terms on things. Like now it's not UFOs, it's UAPs. A rose is a rose. I don't care what you're going to call it. You could call it a bathythermograph if you'd like. I don't care. It's still a rose. Call it whatever you want. It is what it is. So, they keep doing this to keep us confused. And they do this as well in the soul traps, where they implant all kinds of things. And they keep the war between the sexes. They destroy the divine feminine by creating a counter current around that black cube that brought the bad black goo to Earth. The Earth has her own black goo, but it's healing. They tried in UK. They went down the war in the Falklands was to get a whole bunch of the Earth's good black goo and try to turn it bad. So they took it up to Dublin Downs up in UK in that dome, and they tried to, and half the scientists committed suicide. One guy tied a rope around his neck in his car and drove off, tore his head off, because he was shown what he has done in his life. So when you talk about death and going down to, you know what? It's not what you think. Who is the judge? It's not God, it's you. When you lose your physical body, you go into your truth of who you are as your divine person, your divine original personality. And everything you've ever done that was harsh, mean, and cruel to another person come judgment time, which we're coming to in very short time, within our generation, your generation, that is you. For those, not you personally, Indy, but that is the person that's created all this pain and suffering and misery. They will be their own judge, and they will live that person's life in a holographic underverse in which they will feel and go through everything they caused in the people and all of the people that touched. So let's say the people that created this job, all the loss of life, all of the children it hurt, all of the loss of their parents, and all the loss of the children, they will live all of that. That's going to take them till the end of time. And so that's what is the underverse and the burning and the fire. It's from within by the acts they've done. You cannot, again, from the soul, luminosity of the soul, you cannot outrun the misdeeds you have done yourself. And not you, Indy, but in general, the generic you. You cannot outrun what you, as an individual person, have planted the seeds of your own destruction. You always reap. It's the law of God. It's called cause and effect. You plant, you reap. It doesn't mean you reap what somebody else planted. You reap what you planted, and every seed that grew, grew into something else, you reap that too. So you make somebody else miserable. You take a child and turn it into MK Ultra, and that child creates death and destruction. Goes to a post office or goes to somewhere with a bomb and kills a lot of people, and they lose their parents and their children. You will reap all of that misery. Whoever has done the yous that have done that out there, they will reap all of that. That's how that works. That's what really is HE double hockey sticks. It's not what they're telling you. That's why there's layers like Dante's Inferno, where there's layers of it depending on how many lifetimes of other people's lifetimes you have to live as them to experience their suffering as them. You will take on their personality issues, their way of understanding, and you will go through the misery that whoever the Rothschilds, those use, and the Rockefellers, or these other people, that's truthers attacking other truthers because they deem that they're God and they can judge others. You're not God. God's God, and nobody else judges anybody. You can judge yourself, but you do not have the right to judge anybody at all other than yourself. That's it. God gave you dominion not over the earth, over the earth that is you. We come from the clay, from the ashes of the earth, and the stars and the ashes of the stars, the stars, the stardust, and that's what we are. We come from the dust, and to the dust we return. And so in that, that's the judgment that awaits all of us. So live your life. If you want vengeance, live a life that you're proud of, that you helped other people, that you made life better, you made the earth more healthy, you spread joy and blessings and a good time and a happy lifetime and fun and humor and not misery and dealing out misery to other people and attacking other people because you don't agree. It's none of your business. It's not your job to point out to the world who you think is not right. That's a matter of opinion. Who's right, who's wrong? Well, yeah, if you have somebody on film, like P. Diddy did, doing something, for example, possibly the Obamas or the Clintons or many, many movie stars doing something to children, and we prove that in a court of law, and that person, is put in Gitmo or something, and they finally actually confess to it because they're going through adrenochrome withdrawals to the point they're losing their mind. Yeah, you might find out. We might find out the truth, and then we can judge them under the laws of the land, but we don't judge their soul. It's like Trump when McCain, no name, was executed. May God have mercy on your soul, because we don't. Because it's not our job.
I think it's time that we create sanctuaries of refuge for the spirit and the soul.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's like I guess the messages I've been getting on my personal journey is that in some way it's not to spiritually bypass, but I do have to kind of close the door on the old world and focus on the new. And I have to help build that. I have to help create that. And I feel like that's what a lot of the grid worker efforts are that we're doing. So the next one we're actually doing is going to be in Mount Pinnacle in Arkansas, because I got the messages. And I don't know, Jean, have you ever read this book before? Have you ever heard of this book, Lemurian Scrolls?
I know of them, but not from that book.
I got this at the Hindu monastery in Kauai, Hawaii, and they talk about how the main crystal that's in the monastery was brought over from Arkansas. And so I think we're meant to continue to carry that grid work in and come over and recode the crystal grid network in the United States, because I genuinely believe that the ascent of the planet and the total planetary ascension, like the rising of the light and where that's seen in humanity, is going to happen in the United States. That dove light, that Christed consciousness will expand from the US, and that will be like a wave in the awakening worldwide. And so I think we have to go and recode those crystals down there in Arkansas, Sedona, everything that's really riding along the 33rd parallel. And I didn't realize this. That 33rd parallel, why it's the most like spiritually lit horizontal ley line on the planet, is because it's sitting on the largest concentration of crystal mines in the US, because that Mount Pinnacle runs right through there. And there's a 12th dimensional solar disk holographic network that radiates out the prophecy of the coming of the golden light cities and the solar sun disks that activate to radiate that golden light from the ground. So for me, the transformation I'm seeing is coming from the inside of Earth out. And so those that are walking on the pathway, I think, to bring forth the new Earth consciousness, one that not to spiritually bypass the atrocities and the diabolical things that are happening upon humanity, but it's almost like we have to turn away and start building and creating what's going to serve sites of refuge, sites of rehabilitation, sites of truly aiding the soul for those that are able to escape the confinement of the wrath of the soullessness of the Saturn nature itself. And maybe Saturn wasn't always entirely bad, but for some reason, there's enslavement to it now, whenever that transition came in, planetarily speaking. But it's like, I don't know. I believe it's about raising the vibration within the planet to get everybody on a level of heightened telepathy and unified mind wave in which we can co-create harmony together. I feel like people genuinely just don't even remember what harmony is. They don't even remember what joy is. They don't even remember what bliss or even states of euphoria or in high levels of enlightenment. Like this is the pathwork of the yogi and the guru and the Buddha and the Shiva and the Yeshua. Like, I mean, this is the war on consciousness right there. Is they're trying to suppress that true pathwork of those that can really anchor in, you know, the higher consciousness. But I think on a higher level, like you said, it's the Milky Way that's ascending. It's our entire galaxy that's ascending. So these transitions eventually at some point are going to affect the whole. You know, there's a tipping point, there's a turning point in all this. Do you feel that's true?
Yes, so if you look, the US is supposed to get itself back upright, to balance the male and the divine masculine and the divine feminine, to heal Africa. Because if you look at the Nile and the cities along the Nile, in the direction the Nile flows, and invert it on top of the United States, you're looking on the 33rd parallel of the Mississippi all the way up. You look at the towns and they've named them the same, Alexandria, for example, being one, along the Nile. And so the founding fathers and the people coming to this land, stealing it from the natives, named everything in the US after that. So you can see here, the 33rd parallel, look at where it runs between the border of Arkansas and Louisiana through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, all of this. And then if we go where it runs across the rest of the world, where's it running through? What's that right there? What happens to be right here? What's going on in the world right there, right now? And what's gone on throughout all of these areas? So if you look, this is actually a huge part of the Fertile Crescent that comes out of where originally Eden was, which is surrounded by the Euphrates, a river coming out of Iran, coming down the Euphrates through Iraq, and it makes it look like going into here. I'll let people know what that is. They can figure that out. I think they know. This river coming down, it looks like 4 rivers at one point. That's where Eden was. And so it's if you look at the Nile and how it flows, going up this way, and then if we look, it's unique. We look at the Missouri coming down and the Mississippi, the Missouri and the Mississippi. It's a reflection of the rivers in Africa, and the U.S., through its desire to be hegemonic and to infiltrate and overthrow governments all over the world and to bring them war. Again, unbalanced divine masculine. So it's to heal all of this and bring everything back into balance. And so Trump being anointed now, that's his job, to balance everything out and to get us back. And then, of course, we see the BRICS forming as an answer to that hegemonic power of a new economic system that's representing whatever kind of government you want to have, and respecting the resources and bringing their economies, like in Burkina Faso, where they built a nuclear power plant, and what used to be the Wagner Group, defending the people now is the African Corps in Africa, across the middle of Africa, and all those countries going into BRICS. And that's going over into the South America, and they're all saying, we don't have to take this anymore, of coming in, overthrowing our countries. We have a new multipolar world coming into being, with, it's why you look at India and they're looking at us and going, you know what? Thanks, but we don't think we want to trade with you anymore, because every time somebody does trade deals with you and you come in and you're looking at part of our country and going, wow, we would like to own that and take that and overthrow the government in that part of India so we could get all that cheap labor. Same thing they're doing with China. They're looking at Taiwan. Let's bomb that puppy flat, have a war there so we can get China to go nuclear war, so we can have nuclear war, so we can then come back in 100 or 200 years, and we can have cheap labor and tons of resources from Russia, and all this cheap labor in China with all their ghost cities that are protected from all this kind of stuff, and all the Chinese people that never rebel against being abject slave for thousands of years. So we'll take them and get rid of everybody else. You know? So this is their game plan. And so this is why you see all of the countries of Iran and Libya and this, and Libya, Lebanon, all this, resisting this thing to go and just blitz the heck out of Israel, because they do have nuclear weapons. They could hit Iran with them, although the prevailing winds would bring the nuclear radiation back to Israel. Not a great idea, but really, who's running Israel anyway? And there's tons of stuff under there that they could go into. So these non-terrestrials are running the place from under there, and the Zionists, that's who they are. So they're just saying, let's do this. And so that's why they wanted Hillary in, because that was her job. And on the timeline originally, she did do that. So now they're trying to get Kamala Harris, supposedly lady, but not born that way, and not born in the U.S. Wouldn't be the first time, from Barry Soetoro, who wasn't born in the U.S. either, So, and Big Mike, of course. And then all of these people are tied to the truth of what happened with P. Diddy and the freak out parties and this fooling around, doing this stuff with children and other things that should never, ever have happened. So we're coming back to a balance. And it means that the rest of the world is going to have to get woke up. So the normies, I wanted to play this by Colonel Bossy, because people keep asking, why can't it happen right now? And when it does happen, let's just see it all at once, nonstop, EBS. You can't do that, and here's why.
Military tribunals were taking place, and a lot of those people were charged, tried, found guilty, executed. The whole program was recorded for later release to the people. So what's going to happen is, over time, bit by bit, those trials will be released. The video recordings of those trials will be released to the people, but it'll be done as if it's real time, because the truth of what is coming out is so devastating. If it all came out at once, the people would either reject it or go into psychotic shock. Either way, it doesn't help. So unfortunately, it has to be spoon-fed slowly over time. If this happens too quickly, then the black hats win. If chaos comes out, the black hats win. If the economic collapse lasts too long, the black hats win. If the people become violent in an organized sense, the black hats win. So we have to be very measured, and we have been. The military tribunal.
So that's why it has to go slow. People want it all right now because you're awake. And the people are listening that are red-pilled know all this stuff. And it's, I was realizing in some of the decodes and things I'm doing, and people make comments. Some people go, I go too slow. Some people go, you go so fast, I can't keep up. I'm trying to go slow enough so that most people can catch it. I know there's people that are brilliant like you, Indy, that know all this stuff, and they go, we want it and we want it now. But if you go too fast and you're waking people up that have never heard this stuff, they can't take it. You're going to create a psychotic break in that person. They're going to have a mental breakdown. And if we do that too much to too many, then the black hats will win. That's exactly what they want. The lies that are there, when I first woke up in 1990, well, I've had since 1990. That's what, 34 years ago, to learn and go through and learn all this stuff with the children, the pedivores, and all. I mean, I've had decades to acclimate it. It's obvious to me. I look at things and I go, yeah, he was shot from behind. He didn't make it to the top of the roof. It's blatantly obvious. Yeah, that's an MK Ultra. It's blatantly obvious. Yeah, JFK, this, RFK, that, yep, obvious. Um, uh, the Edmund P. Murray building in Oklahoma City and all of the stuff from the Whitewater and all of that and the stuff that was tied to Hillary and it blew up. Yeah, they're burying the evidence, literally. The 911 and the Building 7 and the Pentagon, burying the $20 million, $20 trillion missing, all the evidence, plus taking the gold reserves out from underneath it, like they showed in Die Hard. Yeah, it's obvious to me. You see the crash trucks going through there, just like in the movie. It's all obvious. But for those people that are blue pilled beyond belief, they'll lose their mind. You put all these trials out in as instantly, quickly as we can, instead of how they happen over the last 6 years. They got to go in like it's real time as they went on, as we knew. We had, okay, this person, then this person, then this person, and what we're seeing is people in mass. And we're seeing clones, and we're seeing this. And they're going to go, what? So we got to bring it out bit by bit and, preserve the young people that are buried under this. They have been raised, and they have been raised. They are Mark Oldred. Most of the young people in your age and below, Indy, that you go talk to them, they don't have a clue. You talk to them, and it's like deer in headlights, or they just flat out go, "You're out of your mind."
Yeah.
You rewrite all of history for them in a week, like I did for myself. And I find all of this stuff about all the jabs and what's in them and all this stuff in a week. Most people are going to lose their mind. They're going to lose it. They're going to be in a mental ward. And those that aren't are going to get so upset. You're going to have a civil war in every country on earth, and the black hats are good. So, we've got to restore the balance. And so the healing sanctuaries and that is a really excellent first step. That needs to start before this other stuff starts. In my understanding of it, it should start before. For the young people like yourself, Indy, that can get these kind of things, don't wait for Nasara Jasara and all this other stuff. Start GoFundMe's and start your work like you're doing, Indy, and get all over the world, heal the earth, heal the peoples of the world. Don't worry about their truth. Worry about their understanding of who they are as a person. You're a man or a woman. You're born that way. God made you that way. Leave alone what God made. Learn who you are inside. What are your thoughts? Because most people don't know the difference between their thoughts and some archon or demon in their head saying things. They think that's God. That's not God. God isn't a voice in your head. That's possession. God is an inner knowing that suddenly comes, something that is profoundly deep, that constantly reveals itself over and over, just a knowing. And you didn't know it before, but now it's this beautiful knowledge that's about service to others and kindness and beautiful things and, second chances and wonderful things and all of this that's been hidden from all of us for centuries. Thank you, Indy.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today and sharing your wisdom with everyone who's watching. I think you made some really incredible points, and you tied everything that's going on inside of the matrix into the levels and the dimensions and the shifts into the higher realm and the connection with God and the eternal source divine. So I think we really went 360. So I just want to thank you so much. And I also want to say to everybody watching that if you feel a call to spirit, I am going to be at Mount Pinnacle October 16th through the 21st. If you want to come for ceremony, we are just asking for a $100 donation, and you can message me at info@IndigoAngel222.com if you would like to join the mission work with helping to shift some of these things that me and Jean have been discussing today. It's really about putting a lot of those personal preferences and personal challenges and personal problems aside and just choosing to live for something bigger than yourself, choosing to live for the belief and the knowing that, there is hope and that mankind and humankind is salvageable, it is restorable, and that we are working on building a new earth for humanity. So I think the best thing to do is if you're feeling that grief, that's there, because it's always there. It's especially if your heart's open, you're gonna know that grief we're talking about. And this is why Gene fights so hard for the things that he does by speaking his truth. It's because I know you feel that in your heart too. You feel the pain of all of this, and you're wanting to like shift this. You're wanting to expand consciousness and open people's minds and awaken their hearts. So just know that there's people right now that are all working together to try to bring forth, you know, the cathedrals of learning, the sites of refuge, the places of healing, the places where we can transmute the traumas that happened along the trails of tears and the world wars that are occurring. Like, we're here, we're meditating, we're praying, we're offering blessings to humanity. We're offering blessings to the power centers and stargates to assist with this radical shift. So it's really open to anyone who wants to attend. You know, come out to Mount Pinnacle. I think it's free to actually go to Mount Pinnacle and do some of this grid work with us. And again, you can find that an email in at info@indigoangel222.com. And of course, Gene, Decode, I invite you anytime. You're welcome to come as well if you feel the call. That
I
would
wish
be
I could. I can't be in public, dear. I'm sorry.
wow, that would be amazing though, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
But I
I
know
think if I opened my mouth, everybody would know who I am. My voice is, I've been told, is unique. I don't know. I don't hear it in my head the way people hear it outside. I listen to interviews of myself. I'm like, that's me. Doesn't sound like to me. I know, but you know, because you hear it inside your skull, it's different. So I think the world would know it's me. I can't go out in
yeah,
public.
you do have a unique voice. It does make me wonder the voice with the body, you
Yep,
know.
yep. And I appreciate people want to know who I am. I don't want you to know who I am. I know it's out there, but you know, I don't want it to be about me. A lot of people want something to be about them. I don't want it to be about me. I want to make the world a better place. And if it's about me, I don't really care. You know, the message is what is important. It's what we do to leave the world a better place. And a million years from now, I hope what I did has made a difference. And it who will remember my name then? I don't care. It doesn't need to be me at all. Just the message is what matters. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to share one more thing on an ordinary day, written by Ariel on X. It's quite profound.
Okay.
Okay. This is on an ordinary day. And so this is the two sides of the coin of how things are going to unfold. Ariel on X, here's the post. It's Proletario 1. At Proletario 1 is Ariel. That's this gentleman here. Normally it's a lot of really rough stuff, but this is really different. On an ordinary day, the world will be turned upside down. On an ordinary day, which people would go about their business, the clouds will fall from the sky and it will rain fire. On an ordinary day, when the people have their eyes fixed to the ground, the sky will open up and the impossible will begin to unfold. The divine announcement of thousands of years will be announced, and nothing will be the same in the evening as it was in the morning. On an ordinary day in space-time, the forces of light will come out and will be made visible to all who see and audible to all who hear. This will be the reality to those who are already vibrationally open. On an ordinary day, the media will spread lies. And so you're seeing both sides of the coin here. The financial mob and politicians will twist it all. You will hear a heavenly sound that will put an end to all the chaos on an ordinary day. It will come so fast, even those that are prepared will freeze. On an ordinary day, the world will change, will happen, and all the underground facilities and safeguards put in place to save the elite will not be reached. On an ordinary day, the earth will be covered in silence, and the people of inner earth will take over for a short period of time until the enlightened, interdimensional beings of space appear. A holographic, blissful reality will begin. On an ordinary day, the world will split in two, never seen by a human or experienced by any living being on earth. On an ordinary day, the birds will fall from the sky, and mountain chains that have never before will begin to appear from the oceans, never been seen before, will begin to appear from the oceans. On an ordinary day, the guardians of the earth and the mastery of many worlds, angels, archangels of creation will show in the sky. Many people will be suspicious because many will not be able to distinguish between the light from the shadow realms. On an ordinary day, the veil between the worlds will be lifted, and everyone will find themselves exactly where they chose to be. And this is about choice in the luminosity of the soul, like I put out. Time will be bit and discarded until the timeless being is achieved. On an ordinary day, all TV stations will be reporting on this event. The airways will be taken over by the light, and the deceptive agendas will be squashed, and the lies of the rulers will be told. And in that moment, the chaff will be separated from the wheat. On an ordinary day, the unprepared, the ones who resisted, will be frozen in fear, pleading for help to understand this event. This is why many of you are here. You are the ones who chose to step forward with the guardians of the worlds. On an ordinary day, everything will end which you knew so far. And for those who neither trust nor serve the light, everything will remain the same. Those who are just mindless slaves to the dark forces will continue the reality of slow dying, meaning they will remain and continue to live in a 3D vibration. On an ordinary day, you who are ready shall ascend and be expected by heaven. Many of you will go through a rebirth. Resurrection will be accomplished for you who have voted for the light. It is time for us to become the masters in our own house. And this was, I guess, originally written by Aurora Ray, and it's called The Event. So I thought that was quite profound. It's saying what happens if you've chosen darkness in the shadow, or you've chose to be in service to others. And what that ordinary day, the separation of the light from the dark and the wheat from the chaff and the terrors and all of this. And so it's the separation and the ascension event or the descension event, depending on what you chose. It's up to you. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much for watching and leaving that on a beautiful note. Thank you so much. And we love you all so much, and we hope you have a beautiful, blessed everything.